Am I pregnant? We're going to break down all those super early signs and clues your body might be sending you.
You're probably here because that's the exact question on your mind. It can be a really exciting but also a pretty confusing time. So let's try and get some clarity on what those very first clues might be.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about the number one most obvious sign. Then, we'll get into all the other physical and emotional changes. And finally, we'll cover how you go from just thinking you might be to actually knowing for sure.
So, where does this whole journey of wondering usually start? Well, for most people, it really kicks off with one very specific, very common sign. And yep, you probably guessed it. It's a missed period. It is the classic number one reason people even start to wonder in the first place. If your cycle is usually like clockwork, a late period is pretty much the biggest red flag that something might be up.
Okay, but what about beyond a missed period? Turns out your body can start sending out a whole bunch of other physical signals too. Let's get into what some of those feel like. First on the list is nausea. And that term morning sickness is, well, it's kind of wrong. This queasy feeling can pop up literally any time, morning, noon, or night. It usually kicks in somewhere around week 4 to 6. Next up is the kind of fatigue that's on a whole other level. I'm not talking about just being a little tired after a long day. This is that deep, can't keep your eyes open kind of exhaustion. And there's a real biological reason for it. Your body is cranking out a ton of the hormone progesterone to help support the pregnancy. Changes in your breasts are another huge one. You might notice they feel extra tender, maybe a little swollen, or sore to the touch. For some people, the area around the nipples can even get a bit darker. It's all part of your body starting to get ready. Okay, now this next one can be super confusing. You might feel some light cramping, kind of like your period is about to start. And you might even see a tiny bit of spotting. This is often what's known as implantation bleeding. It happens when the fertilized egg attaches itself to the lining of the uterus. So how in the world do you tell the difference? Well, implantation spotting is typically really light, sometimes just pinkish or brownish, and it doesn't last long at all. Your period, on the other hand, is usually heavier, much more red, and sticks around for a few days. The key differences are really the color, the amount, and the timing. All right, let's move on from the purely physical stuff. The changes aren't just happening on the outside. You might start noticing some pretty big shifts in your mood, your habits, and just how you feel day to day. Let's quickly run through these 4. First, your relationship with food might get weird. Suddenly you're craving pickles and ice cream, or maybe the smell of your morning coffee makes you sick. Then, you might find yourself running to the bathroom constantly. That's because your body's blood volume increases, making your kidneys work overtime. Third, mood swings. Thanks to hormones, you could feel on top of the world one minute and crying the next. And finally, you might just feel warmer. So, that feeling of being a bit warmer, it's connected to something called your basal body temperature. That's just your body's temperature when you're totally at rest, like first thing in the morning. After ovulation, it goes up a bit, but if you're not pregnant, it drops right before your period. If you are pregnant, though, it can actually stay elevated. It's a pretty subtle clue, but for people who track it, it's a big one. Whew, okay, so we have gone through a lot of potential signs and symptoms, but all this watching and waiting can be stressful. How do you move past the guessing game and get a real, solid answer? So we've just covered 9 of the most common early symptoms. And while it's great to be in tune with your body and notice these things, there's something really important we have to talk about. And this right here is the biggest takeaway of this whole explainer. Symptoms are clues. They are hints, but they are absolutely not a positive test. They are not definitive proof of anything. And it's so crucial to remember this. Everyone's body is different. Some people might get hit with almost every symptom on the list, while others might only have 1 or 2, or even none at all. There is no one-size-fits-all experience. So, if you really want to know for sure, what do? It's actually a pretty simple 2-step process. Step 1, take a home pregnancy test. They're incredibly accurate these days if you follow the directions. And step 2, make an appointment with your doctor to confirm the result and figure out the next steps. At the end of the day, all these early signs are just that. They're the very beginning of a possible new chapter. Knowing what to look for is powerful because it helps you listen to your body and decide what to do next. So the real question is, what's your next step going to be?